Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blue Couch Chat. Welcome to my living room. And yes, I actually have a blue couch. It's been a while, but I finally have a blue couch. Um, I know I've been missing for a while. I've been MIA, but I had to take a break to focus on my mental and my physical health. As well as work on some special things for Blue Couch Chat, which will be announced in the next few weeks. I just want to say thank you for being patient with me and for all of you who have checked on me and given me support and encouragement and just making sure I'm okay. Y'all are my blue family and I love you so much. I don't know where I would be without you. I can't say it enough and I hope you know how much all of you mean to me. Um, I guess I should introduce myself, huh? Um, well, I'm your host, Shannon Lee Sin. I'm a 13-year, as of October 4/5th, a 13-year cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at 29 with stage 3C colorectal cancer after experiencing symptoms since I was 17. I'm passionate about creating connections within the colorectal cancer community, focusing on advocacy, education, and breaking down healthcare barriers as well as stigmas. Colorectal cancer rates are rising by about 2% annually in adults under 50, and people of African descent / Black Americans are facing the highest incidence and the highest mortality rates. People like me. Here, we're not just sharing about survivorship stories, we're also addressing the unique challenges of young adults and minority populations and anyone who's been impacted by colorectal cancer in any way. Living with colorectal cancer can feel incredibly isolating, especially when you don't have a safe space to talk about your experiences. Social support has been shown to improve mental resilience and even aid in physical recovery. That's why Blue Couch Chat is more than just a place to talk. It's a safe space where you can feel seen, heard, and supported. Whether you're a survivor, a caregiver, a friend, or an ally, or an advocate, or a medical professional, because you guys suffer mental health helping us as well. Together, we're building a network that fosters connection and raises awareness to make a difference, one conversation or chat at a time. Let's make a difference here on the Blue Couch. This is a safe place to talk about your shit, all of it, because cancer is shitty, but colorectal cancer is extra, extra shitty. This show is live and it is intended to be interactive. So if you have any comments or questions for me or my guest, please put them in the comments on whichever social media platform you're watching from, and I'll get to them during the live stream show. So today, I'm honored to welcome Cathy Bowers to the couch. Cathy is a 14-year survivor of stage 3B rectal cancer, diagnosed at age 50 after a routine colonoscopy revealed the unexpected news. A former attorney with the Department of Justice, Cathy took a bold step at age 37, leaving her job to pursue law school. Now she dedicates her time to advocacy, working closely with colorectal cancer organizations to raise awareness, support patients, and fight against common misconceptions. Cathy's resilience and dedication to making a difference are truly inspiring, and we're thrilled to dive into her powerful story and mission. Cathy is not just a great friend to me, she has also been such a source of positivity, hope, love, and support for me as well. And she does that not just for me, but for everyone who is lucky and blessed enough to know her. She has one of the biggest, most giving hearts I've ever seen, and some of the warmest energy and best hugs you can ever feel. Let's welcome the beautiful red-headed beauty, Cathy Bowers, to the Blue Couch. Hello, Cathy. Welcome to the Blue Couch and Blue Couch Chat. I'm super excited and honored to chat with you today. I've been waiting for this. How are you?
I'm good. What did you call me? The redheaded what?
The beautiful redheaded beauty.
Oh God, can you say like that every day to me to remind myself that I'm okay, that I actually do look that good some days.
You are
So
gorgeous, and I love your fiery red hair because it represents your fiery spirit. So I love it.
thanks, thanks. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see and talk to you.
Same, it's an honor to have you on. I know you showed interest in being on here from when I spoke about this and I had barely even started. And I couldn't wait to have you on. And I don't know if you know, but this season I've handpicked my guests. And the guests that I've handpicked, Cathy, are people who mean a lot to me and who have gotten me to where I am today through my struggles and who have been supportive of me and have been my closest friends and have been my family. And so that's why I have you on this season. So I just want you to know how special you are. This isn't just a, oh, I need a guest. This is, I'm handpicking who I have on right now.
Yeah,
So you
thank you. And
guys,
that really means a lot to me that you said that. Thank you very much.
yeah, you really are special. And I just love and adore you so much. And I won't forget
Back
how
at you, sister.
I won't forget how you and Heather were ready to strong arm me to take me to the emergency room back in March. So,
Also, yeah, I was like, you're going whether you want to or not. But, you,
yeah,
you won. You won on that one. But you may not win again if it should ever occur again.
I know. I hate the ER, especially being somewhere where I'm
You
not
didn't
from.
know where you were. Yeah, you
Yeah,
were in another city. That makes
yeah.
it.
And I didn't feel like I was dying. So I was like, but next time if that happens, I do appreciate you though in being my family and looking out for me and ready to drag me to that ER if I needed to go. I really love you for that.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, can you walk us through to the moment of your diagnosis?
Sure. It was the summer of 2010. I was 50 years old. And yeah, that's right. I'm going to be 65 soon. So, and I already have my appointment to get Medicare. But anyway, that always makes me laugh when I think I'm going to be 65. Where did the time go? But anyway, yeah, it was 2010, and I was noticing when I had a bowel movement, I saw blood in the toilet, and when I wiped, quite frankly, and
Right.
like I told you the other day, as all intelligent people do, I ignored it, but only for about 2 weeks.
Right.
And the stupid part is the reason why I ignored it so much was I was busy at work. I mean, I was busy at work. I didn't want to leave work to go to the doctor. So I did. I went into the office one day, and I went to everybody in their office has their BFF, and I
Right.
went to her and I told her about it. I'm like, dang it, I'm seeing blood, and she said, well, you're going to go to your doctor, and I said, yeah, next week. I'm busy this week. I have off on Monday. I'll go Monday. She says, no. She literally made me leave work that day. Everybody should have a BFF like that. Literally made me leave work and go to my primary care. So I didn't even have an appointment with the primary care. I walked in, saw her. It was a wonderful, wonderful human being. I just saw her yesterday. And I told her what was going on. And she said, well, Cathy, you're 50. So you need to have a colonoscopy anyway, because back then the screening age was 50, right? It's lower
Right.
now to 45. And like she and I kind of joked about it a little bit, like, oh, you know what, it's probably just hemorrhoids, everything will be okay, it's gonna be fine. So off I go to the gastroenterologist. I have my colonoscopy, and when I woke up, he said, Miss Bowers, there's a problem. You're gonna end up needing surgery. And I'm just waking up, and I think he was actually upset telling me, because
Right.
it was so unexpected. So his office was wonderful. I forgot to tell you this. I had that colonoscopy on a Friday the 13th. So don't have colonoscopies on Friday the 13th. Bad idea. Bad idea. So anyway, by the time I left his office, he had already, that was a Friday, he had already gotten an appointment with me with my colorectal surgeon for Monday morning. So went to see the colorectal surgeon. She said, you have to come back to have the sigmoidoscopy because, she didn't know what to expect when I was just walking in like that. She said,
Right.
you're coming back for the sigmoidoscopy. And she also set up for me to within a week, I was already seeing the oncologist and the radiation oncologist. So it happened really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, and the PET scan, the whole 9 yards, and it ended up being a diagnosis of stage 3B rectal cancer. Or as I say, leave it up to me to get cancer. Leave it up to me to get cancer up my ass.
Well, we had that in common, I guess.
It's like people who have this is kind of weird, but have you noticed that people who lots of times when people who have or had or colorectal cancer, we have good senses of humor about things. And I'm not saying we don't have our days that we cry, because we do, Shan.
Right.
But somehow or other, like when you were saying it's shitty to have cancer, but it's really shitty to get colorectal cancer. Like we have that kind of sense of if you go to a like Alicon or something like that, like a place where we all gather together to get information. What do we give out? We give out little emojis of
Poop emojis.
Poop emoji.
Yeah.
Who else does that?
I actually said, like, I tell everyone, I'm like, I have a real shitty sense of humor.
Literally and figuratively. Yes.
And I think humor gets us through everything, like, so since we're talking about humor and our outlook, how did you handle the initial shock of your diagnosis?
I think it was total shock at first. I didn't want to tell anybody. I can remember that. I was actually embarrassed to tell men about it. Took a while for me to feel comfortable telling a man that I had rectal cancer. I told my next door neighbor, and I sat on her patio that Saturday morning and just cried with her. And like she held my hand and said, Cathy, this next year is going to be the year of Cathy. The only thing you're going to worry about is you. Mm-hmm. She was a nurse, so she was great to talk to. And I had like I said, a little bit at a time. I told people,
right,
this person and this person, and I went into work and I told my managers right away. And then I told the BFF. I actually called in some women who I was friends with into her office. I still remember, and I said, I'm going to tell you all this once, so I don't have to keep repeating it. Right. I said, but I'm going to tell you this. And this was like after I saw the colorectal surgeon too, and I got a really good prognosis. I mean, all the doctors always said, I remember my oncologist specifically said, you're a young woman. Our goal is to cure you. Our goal is to cure you. Right. So I always felt very positive when it came to talking to my doctor. So I told my friends that, I'm getting very, positive feedback. I think everything's going to be okay. It's just going to be a rough road for the next year. Right. My employer at the time was very supportive. They let me work at home full time. But I'll get to that later about what happens when you go back to work. That's a little different story, but we'll get to that.
It is.
It's different. Yeah. Suddenly, well, let's get to it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, they're great to you while you're going through it, or hopefully they are. They're not always. Fortunately, my employer was wonderful to me while I was going through the year of radiation and chemo and 2 surgeries. Right. But when you go back, and I think when the time came for me to go back to the office, that's when the depression hit. That's when, like, all of a sudden the realization, I had this year of being in a cocoon. Right. And then suddenly I had to come out of that cocoon, and I wasn't a butterfly. Right. Right. And I actually talked to my cousin, who's a therapist, about it. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And she put it in such a great way. She said, think about when you go on a vacation for a week and you don't want to go back to work after that week you have off. She goes, you have been through something a million times more than a week's vacation. So of course you don't want to go back to reality just yet. You've had this reality. Now you got to go back to this other reality that you didn't always like.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I was like, yeah, that's true. But I guess the thing about employers, when you go back to work after being in treatment, or like I said, I was fortunate I could work at home. I literally sat in the spot I'm sitting at right now,
right,
with chemo going into my chest working.
wow,
Yeah, it's that's kind of like not real, but then you go back to the office and everybody thinks, okay, you're back, you're 100%, and you're not.
right,
You're not. And that was a really hard thing for me. That was a really hard for me to go back into reality after I had this year of just floating.
right,
My only goal was to live, to persevere, to get through this year of
right.
not always being physically comfortable. Yeah. So, but if you want me to talk a little bit more about, well, so that's the one thing I want to, you and I have talked about this before about wishing employers would be more understanding when it's over, because it's not over.
But they're not even understanding when you're going through it either.
Exactly. They don't understand when you're going through it, and they're even less understanding when they think, oh, okay, it's over. No, it's not over. It's never really over.
Yeah.
So what happened to me is the first thing that happened was I did radiation and Xeloda, pop the chemo pill.
Wow.
And then right as I stopped that, there's going to be a little bit of a break before we did the resection.
Right.
And during that period of time, my father dies. So that was even, double whammy on that. And my father wasn't doing well, and I never told him.
Right.
That what I was going through, even though I think he knew something was wrong. I could just tell he knew something was wrong, just the way he looked at me, he suspected something. So, he passed away, and what happened was I literally was walking into my uncle's condo after the funeral, and my cell phone went off. It was my colorectal surgeon. And she said, hi, it's just, how are you? I was just calling to see how you were doing. And I said, well, quite frankly, not so good right now. I just came back from my father's funeral. And she said, okay, divine intervention. I was calling because I was supposed to have the resection surgery right before Christmas.
Right.
And she said, okay, I'm not even going to ask you the question that I was going to ask you. I'm just going to tell you, you're not having the surgery till after the holidays. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. She goes, you haven't even thought about, because, I'm an only child.
Right.
I don't have siblings to help me. I don't have children to help me. And she's like, you haven't even thought about who's going to help you after the surgery. And I'm like, you're right. I haven't thought of any of that, because I was dealing with Dad.
Right.
Too, him being ill. And she's like, well, I made up my mind. You're now having the surgery on January 3rd. And I'm like, that sounds good to me, because that's my mother's birthday. I want the surgery on the day that my mom, is going to be looking down on me, making sure I'm okay,
Right.
So then I had that surgery. The other interesting thing about that is, once I was diagnosed, I told every doctor I had, my eye doctor, my dentist, they all knew. And so I called my gynecologist, and she said, okay. She said, I want you to come in and see me right away. So I came in to see her, and she said, you've been my patient for a really long time, and I'm not about to lose you now. She goes, and there's going to be some time down the road that you're going to need a hysterectomy. She said, we know this is happening. We've talked about it, because I had fibroid cysts. And I was fit. And actually, I went through menopause. The radiation made me go through menopause.
Right.
We didn't know if my cycle would come back or not, but we never found out because she said, we're going to do she goes, she took it upon herself to call my colorectal surgeon because they both worked out of the same hospital. Two women surgeons, by the way. And so she took it upon herself to call my colorectal surgeon and say to her, I think the two of us need to do a tag team surgery where I go in first, do the hysterectomy. And then when I finish, you go in and you do the resection surgery and the ostomy. And she agreed to it because chances were I was going to have another surgery down the road for the hysterectomy. So it was a whammy of a surgery. I ended up being in the hospital for 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
Wow.
Because I got, apparently I pumped the morphine too much and gave myself something called an ileus.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up for 2 weeks. And then, believe it or not, when the gynecologist came in to tell me how everything went on her end, she informed me that I had a fibroid cyst the size of a baby's head.
Wow.
So they got rid of the fibroid, they got rid of the tumor. And the tumor was much smaller because the radiation had shrunk it. So the fibroid was huge and the tumor was small. And then, of course, it was then learning to deal with the temporary ostomy, which was interesting.
That was the hardest part for me was my ostomy, and they expected mine to be permanent. My surgeon did not want to reverse it, and I insisted because at 29, 30 years old, I dealt with chemo and having cancer like a champ, but a year and a half with an ostomy, I was not coping. And I was like, if God wanted me to have this, he would have given me the strength to cope. And I wasn't. And so I just felt like it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
So my faith played a huge part in that decision. But I also want to go back to where you were talking about your dad. I was tearing up a little bit. I'm sure you noticed, but my grandfather, who is like the love of my life, my best friend, he was actually diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a month after I was, right after Thanksgiving or right before Thanksgiving. I don't know. It's all a blur. But he was sick through Christmas, couldn't keep food down at the table, not even soup. And he was gone by January 12th. Mm-hmm. And I was on chemo. The day that he passed away, I was on the pump and I saw him. I was with him up to about 20 minutes before he passed. And so that was really hard for me. And so I can only imagine how you had to grieve your father and deal with this diagnosis all at the same time. And it's so hard. So how did you get through that? Like, what gave you the strength to go through the grief as well as the shock and the sheer shittiness of having cancer at the same time?
Yeah, I had a great support system of family and friends. My father's youngest brother, who was a lot younger than my dad, he was my right hand. He was like, I'm taking care of everything for you. You know, right. He was wonderful. So I had that support. You know, I know that I did not properly mourn my father's death. And
yes, same way.
I did not properly mourn his death until sometime after everything was done, after that year of treatment. And I didn't even realize it until another friend of mine at work told me, like she pointed it out to me and said, you have not properly mourned your father's death. I can just tell.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it, because I had already lost my mom from cancer. She had ovarian cancer, but even though it wasn't the cancer that killed her, she got C. diff infection in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And couldn't fight the C. diff infection because, the chemo had her so down.
Right.
So she ended up going into coronary arrest from the C. diff infection. And that was actually a harder death to handle than my dad even, because it was so unexpected, really unexpected.
Right.
And it was one of those fast things that happened. But yeah, I mean, when it came to mourning my father, I don't think I did properly. I really don't, until it was brought to my attention and, it was time for therapy.
Yeah.
The other thing, I didn't go to therapy during the entire time I was going through treatment, which I should have been doing. I should have, but something else you and I talked about a little bit in the past is how different things are now for people who are being diagnosed.
Yeah.
I think nutrition is being talked about more. I think, giving people, talking about therapy. I mean, it's a big difference between 2010 and almost 2025. A
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah.
And
Because I was,
I navigated myself. I
me
navigated my.
too. Me too. I
I
did
didn't
my
have
own.
I didn't have group chats with people. I didn't
Right.
have, you know, fight colorectal cancer and colorectal cancer alliance and Blue Hope Nation and all those things.
Right.
If they were there, nobody told me about them.
Right. Like I didn't find CCA until 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized I wasn't alone, especially being a young person, because they told me I was a rare case being
Yeah.
29.
I didn't find the Colorectal Cancer Alliance until after I retired in 2019, and that's only because somebody else told me about it by sheer accident, and it was COVID, and I was just sitting around doing nothing, and I started watching their Zooms and remember how we used to have those Friday night happy hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I met everybody and but hadn't met that support system that I didn't have before. And I
Right.
only knew them through the screen until I finally got to meet them in person.
Right. And it's
But I
life.
navigated myself. I didn't have any groups or therapy, and that was a mistake.
Right.
But nobody told me. I
Right.
just did it myself.
So I want to say, when I was going through my cancer, yes, social media was a thing, but it was kind of new. And there,
Yeah.
like you said, there weren't really those groups. And when I did post on my Facebook, I was very vague. I was not public about my diagnosis because there wasn't anyone being public back then. I didn't know anybody else, and I didn't know whether I was going to live or die, and I was very private about it. And who at 29, as a young woman who's single, wants to tell everyone publicly on social media, oh yeah, I have colon cancer,
Yeah.
oh, I have an ostomy, oh, I'm going through chemo. So I kept people who knew abreast of what I was going through, and I was very vague and cryptic. So my posts were literally round 1 of 12, here we go. Round 6 of 12, halfway there. Round 11 of 12, one more to go. But nobody would know that I wasn't boxing.
Yeah. Well, that's more than I did because I wasn't even on Facebook then.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
was nothing,
Yeah.
no,
And most people didn't
nothing.
know I had an ostomy. Even my close friends, I would hang out with them and they didn't know I had an ostomy. It was on a need to know basis. I was so private. And I think there was a lot of shame for me. I think, I don't know if it was shame or embarrassment or just because I was young and I didn't think people would understand. A lot of my friends disappeared. My family disappeared. Um, so that's why I created the space, is because I want people to have a space where we can support each other. And my motto is that every story needs to be shared and every voice needs to be heard, because we all can help at least one person just in sharing our story and being who we are. And the other thing, Cathy, going back to what we were talking about, is I really believe that we need to be more open about mental health as cancer survivors.
Mm-hmm.
We all struggle. And if anyone tells me that they got through cancer and they don't have PTSD, they're a freaking liar.
Right.
Because I have suffered through anxiety, depression, all of it. I took I don't know how many month hiatus because mentally I couldn't show up for myself, much less to be here for others. And I had to make the decision to stop. Although I was gaining momentum in my live stream, I couldn't be at my best. And I couldn't do what I'm doing now with you a week ago. And I really had to think about myself putting on my mask first so that I could put mask onto the other people and help
Mm-hmm.
them in the space. And it was a really hard decision because this is my happy place and it does do a lot for me. But I just wasn't in that space for a very long time. I've lost so many friends
Right.
this year, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really taken a toll on me. And then, I don't think I've even mentioned it publicly on Blue Couch Chat, but I resigned from my job back in May officially. After fighting for my job for a year, I decided, what am I fighting for? To be discriminated and harassed? Like, why? Why am I gonna deal with this crap? I'm tired and I'm sick. And then the final straw for me was getting a diagnosis of arthritis in both my hips and being diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder. I know that sounds weird because I know when I get into the space, I'm happy go lucky with everyone and I'm personable, but it takes me forever to get to a colorectal cancer event or even a family gathering. Um, and then I have also been diagnosed with complex PTSD because of a lot of things that I've gone through. So one thing that I want to really advocate for is us being more open about our mental health, because
Yeah.
I see so many people in our community struggling mentally and they feel like they have to do it alone. And they don't, because we're all struggling even when we're NED. And then the other thing that I really want to advocate for is, now that mental health is available online so easily through apps and whatever on your phone and your iPad and your computer, I really think that every cancer survivor should automatically, once they hear the words "you have cancer," they should have an oncologist, a GI, a surgeon, and a psychiatrist/psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
They need that mental health support. That needs to be part of their team. It is as crucial as having an oncologist. When I was diagnosed in 2011, it was my oncologist giving me anxiety and depression pills. That shouldn't be happening. I was getting the pills, but I wasn't getting the help mentally. And that is necessary. We know that the pills don't cure everything.
Right.
So, that's something that I definitely believe. And I think that we need to educate other survivors to advocate for that mental health support, because I didn't start therapy until 2018. And it wasn't even because of my cancer, it was because of my work shit that I went into
Yeah.
therapy. It was because of the harassment.
Yeah.
And then everything else came out,
Yeah.
And
I had a
so
similar situation. Yeah.
So yeah, so it wasn't until I was 8, 9 years out that I finally got a therapist, and it wasn't even for my cancer. And I still haven't spoken about my cancer. You know what I'm saying? Because now I'm dealing with life stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to go back and try to figure out how cancer and then it's cancer never stops, right? It never stops affecting us mentally. Like every day something happens and I get frustrated. Like I can't sweep for my floor at 42 because of the arthritis in my hips. I'm in pain. I can barely walk my dogs. So the mental aspect, it never ends for us.
Right.
So I'm glad you touched on that. So I do
the other thing I also like to touch on is,
yeah.
I'm totally 100% with you on the mental health. The other aspect is the other aspects of women's health that occurs when you have radiation that no one told me about.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Nobody told me about how, I will be wetting my pants more, like
Or
I may
pooping
have to wear,
yourself more.
I may have to wear Depends upon occasion,
Mhm.
This, like, if I go to a movie, this is so sad. If I go to a movie, or and I love the theater, anybody who knows me knows I call myself the theater nerd.
Right.
I I'll wear a Depends because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to make it. My goal is to make it through the entire show, without having an incident. Um, or like, you laugh or you cough, you lose a little,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, nobody told me those things may happen, that we were going to happen from radiation. And then the other aspect is the sexual aspect of it. Nobody told me that while I was having radiation, I should have been using the dilators.
Right.
That would have been nice to know that
Or
there'd
pelvic
be
floor
those kinds of
exercises.
issues, because one's sex life is important to their well-being.
Right. Right.
That was never explained. That was never explained to me. And all these years later, it's just been this past year that I went to pelvic floor physical therapy.
Right.
I mean, all these years later, and how I found out about pelvic floor physical therapy was during, like, I retired in 2019, and then I started. Then the pandemic hit, and I started watching, the various Zooms that, like, Colorectal Cancer Alliance or whomever was putting on, and I watched one on, women's health issues, and I'm
Right.
like, really? I That's what I'm saying. I never knew. Gee,
Right.
and then it still took me several years to actually, all right, I have the time now to go have pelvic floor physical therapy, when it
Right.
should have been happening back in 2011.
Right.
And I had 2024. I waited that long.
Right.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, those things need to be told as part of. I mean, you're going through, when you get the diagnosis, you're going through this fight to live. It's like that. That's your main thing. I'm getting through this.
Right.
So you're not thinking about those other things. But if it's presented to you in the right way, like by the nurse or whomever who's working in your oncologist office,
Right.
that information, and not just a piece of paper that they give you to say, read this,
Right.
to actually sit down with you and talk to you about it, or your gynecologist sit down. And when I mentioned it to my gynecologist, who I absolutely love this woman, and when I said to her, nobody ever told me about dilators, and she looked at me and said, and she apologized.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm so sorry, Cathy. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Because was looking at the physical part of it. She was looking at the hysterectomy part of it. She wasn't looking at that
The
other aspect. And hopefully that's changing because of, people like me who are speaking out about it.
Honestly, I'm going to tell you the truth. It hasn't, from what I've heard.
Really?
I know people who have been recently diagnosed in the past few years, and they're young just like me. And I had to tell them, you need to ask for pelvic floor physical therapy. You need to ask about dilators. You need to advocate for yourself with
Right.
this. So
And
this
I'm
is
going to go as
these
far as saying,
raising stuff.
some women, may still want to have children. So they should, and this is also true of women who have breast cancer, they should be asked if they want to freeze eggs.
So I asked when I was diagnosed, it was one of my first questions. And unfortunately, because it was 6 weeks after my diagnosis, by the time I got out of the hospital, because I had to relearn how to walk, and then I had a pulmonary embolism. So it was really hard. I was told that I didn't have time to think about my fertility.
Okay.
So I had to do the math. I asked my doctor, I said, so what are the chances of this affecting my fertility? And he said, let me go ask. And while he was out asking his the overseeing oncologist, I was on Google and I was looking up IVF.
You were going to say that.
Yeah, I was looking up IVF and the
Yeah.
success of IVF, and I saw that it was only 33% successful, and it cost about 100 grand each round. And he came back and he said, well, according to statistics, there's only a 25% chance of this affecting your fertility. So I was like, well, I'm looking at 75% versus 33% and 100 grand. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to just do the chemo because it's not risking my life over.
Right.
So, what's the point of delaying chemo, becoming stage 4 because of stage 3C, and not even being able to live to have kids anyway? What would have been the point?
Yeah. I guess it really kind of depends on everybody's situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Really
mean, my cousin has cancer and she was able to harvest her eggs and everything before.
Right.
But
Right.
not
I think a
everyone
lot of
is
breast cancer women probably,
yeah.
it's a different situation for them. They may be able to take, every situation is different. None of us, it's like fingerprints, we're all different.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it was, for me, it was because I had already been delayed so long, past surgery and because it had already started to spread. I mean, when they did surgery and they found my cancer, they thought I was stage 4 until my pathology came back and they downgraded me to 3C. So it was pretty urgent for me to start chemo like ASAP, which I understood. So, yeah, I think everybody's situation is different, but I definitely think that you're right. We need to teach women who are diagnosed that they need to advocate for mental health,
Mm-hmm.
for sexual health, for pelvic floor, physical therapy, for dilators,
Mm-hmm.
for, to be fully educated on the side effects and the ramifications of getting a hysterectomy or treatment putting them into menopause early as a risk factor, because those things were never mentioned to me. Yeah, I had to ask. So I really believe, and this is why I started Blue Couch Chat, Cathy, is because I believe that it is on us as survivors to educate others so that they can advocate for themselves, because education empowers you to be a self advocate, and self advocacy is what saves our lives.
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
and that's why I love that we're having this conversation, and I appreciate you being so candid and transparent. So going there, I want to just bring up some comments real quick, because for some reason people are commenting on Facebook, but it's not showing their names, but I do kind of remember who they are. So Phil says, great to see you doing your show again. Thank you for tuning in. This was, let's see, Mark. So Marky, I know him from Jamaica. He says, two brave ladies.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then Marky also said that we take a lot for granted, and that he really needs to get his prayer game going for friends and loved ones. My friend Tim, who has Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer,
Mm-hmm.
he says, hi, Shannon and Cathy. Let me bring
Hi.
up. Hey, Tim, thanks for showing up for me. I love you. You know that, my bruh fam. And then let's see, Marky. Marky said, this one is funny.
I feel like I know Marky.
Yeah, he's awesome. The story of how I know Marky is actually kind of funny, but he's a awful ex-boyfriend's friend, and he and I have stayed friends. He's an amazing person. He said he covered his ears for a second.
Sorry,
um
Marky.
But he also says, Cathy, that just like I say, you have such a wonderful spirit. And it is so true. So I wanted to go to those comments. Your story is impacting people, and people who don't even have colon cancer. None of these people here. I mean, Tim, of course, has AML, acute myeloid leukemia. So he is a cancer survivor. He has his own podcast, Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer.
Right.
But the other people who are commenting are friends of mine, and they're impacted by your story, although they're not cancer survivors. And so that's the great thing about what we're doing, is that we're helping people even if they haven't gone through what we've gone through, and hopefully they'll know the symptoms and they'll get screened, right? So I do want to go into what are actually, let me start with your advocacy. What led you to become a colorectal cancer advocate, and how has that work impacted your life?
Sure. I guess I fell into it really. I mean, after retirement and COVID was going on, you know what really did it? You know how they talk about having survivor's guilt? Well, I refused to have survivor's guilt.
Mhm.
And for me, it was more like, okay, I was fortunate, one of the fortunate ones to survive, because you and I know many who weren't fortunate, mutual friends of ours. And
Mhm.
so I said to myself, there has to be a reason why I survived. What's the reason? And what I came up with, I'm here to help others. I want to help others. Um, so I got involved with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance's buddy program.
Right.
Um, and I had 3 buddies along the way. Unfortunately, I just found out that one of my buddies passed. She and I
So
were gotten
sorry.
pretty had she and I had gotten pretty close, but I she was NED, and I have and she was older, and the last couple of times I talked to her, she was talking about that she had had some strokes.
Mhm.
So I have a feeling it was not cancer related. I have no way of knowing because she wasn't returning my call. Obviously, she had died,
Right.
and I don't know her family. To like when she wasn't returning my call and wasn't returning my call. The last time I had called, her phone had been disconnected. She didn't have a cell phone or a computer.
Right.
It was like landline. So when that happens, you you Google them to see if an obituary comes up,
Right, and it
and
did.
it did. Yeah. So so I don't know what happened, what the cause of death was. Like I said, and I don't know her family to find out. Um,
Right.
so for me it was okay, advocacy, whether it's working one-on-one with someone or if it's going to the Hill to talk to our representatives
Right.
for fund, as we do every year,
Right.
for funding, or to try to get funding, for research, try to get programs for people in rural areas so they can have
Right.
screening, all the
Right.
different programs that we learn about when we go to call on Congress every year.
Mhm.
So I think that's what ended up pushing me, was what am I supposed to do with this now?
Right.
What am I supposed to do with this now? I think that's really my motivator. The
Yeah.
hard part of becoming an advocate and getting involved is losing friends. As you well know, there's been quite a few losses over
Yeah.
the past couple of months, even over the past couple of years, really, right? Since I've gotten involved. And that's really hard. That's real. When you lose a friend, that's one of the hardest things that we
So
go.
you have me crying because you're right. Like, this is the side effect of cancer that
Yeah,
they don't talk about, is
right,
the survivor's guilt and the losing friends.
right,
And,
right.
you know, I've lost so many friends over the years that I've lost count.
Mm-hmm.
And when I lose a friend, I call my mom. And at first, my mom was like, well, it's part of life. But now that she's getting these calls so often, and I'm telling her, like last month, I lost Kayla, like literally the day after my cancerversary. And I reached out to her on my own cancerversary because I was like, I'm not hearing from her. What is going on? Because I
Yeah,
knew she was on hospice. And she commented back and she said she was fine. And then she was gone the next day. And I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, like my friend Kayla passed. And I don't know. Well, we got matching tattoos for a
I remember when you guys, and when you were in DC last year, you and Heather and she and you came in, and I was there, and I'm like, you told me about it. I'm like, let me see them, let me see them. I can still remember the three of you coming back to
yeah.
the hotel after going to get the tattoos. Yeah, I
And then
remember that clearly.
another thing that we had in common was that we both went to First Descents, and she got a wave tattoo because of First Descents, and I got this big ass wave tattoo because of First Descents. And so we have that in common too, although they're not matching. So I just feel like I'm forever tied to her
Yeah,
through my tattoos, which I never thought I would have done.
yeah,
And then I don't know if anybody knew, but we met at Colin Congress last year and then again this year, and we really bonded this year. And when I was in the hospital in April after Colin Congress, she happened to be in Miami, and she was going to the airport, and she literally came in the morning to see me at the hospital, lugging her little carry-on suitcase and her carry-on bag, and spent a few hours with me in the hospital before leaving to the airport.
yeah.
And so these are the bonds that we make, and
It
these are the
is.
people that we lose. And she was 33.
I
And
know.
so when you brought up losing people, I cried because, the whole reason behind Blue Couch Chat, if you watch the first episode, is Lee Silverstein, who's been like an anchor in our community because he was also diagnosed in 2011, just like me. He was March, I was October. and we met in 2013 in Miami at our first DCA conference because we were both from Florida, and we became friends. And you know, Lee was the reason behind this. And when I saw that he was on hospice, I'm like, okay, we've been talking about this for a decade. I really have to do this. And it was the plan that you're gonna be my first guest. So I literally put this entire thing together during 1 week while
Mhm.
having COVID.
Right, right. I
And it
remember. Hmm.
was my first guest, and that was on February 9th. And it was on a Friday, and he passed away the following Wednesday, Valentine's Day. And that has been really hard for me. So this entire show is dedicated to Lee Silverstein.
Hmm.
Because without him, I wouldn't be doing this. I never thought I would ever do this, but I realized that somebody has to, and I noticed that nobody had. So I'm like, well, I guess it's on me. So, we have podcasts, but I feel that a live stream is so much more impactful, you know,
Right, right,
because we see the interaction between the two of us, and it's people are more likely to tune in and get more from it, and it's interactive. People can ask questions and make comments, and we can relate to them. And so I think that this is a great format. And not only that, but I created this space, as you know, we've spoken about it, so that everyone can share their story, because everyone's story can help someone
absolutely.
or save a life or help someone through the difficult crap known as
Right.
cancer.
But like you said, can save a life. How many times, when I think about it now, somebody has said to me,
Uh-huh.
I've gotten my colonoscopy or I've done Cologuard
Right.
because of you.
Right.
Because of all the advocacy, like you're always putting stuff out there for us to read and hear, and you're always yelling at us about it. You
Right.
know, because of you, I had that done.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm.
one friend of mine, she I got a text from her one morning, and she's like, "I'll be thinking of you while I'm shitting in the box." I'm like, and then last Christmas, my next door neighbors went away, and whenever we go, somebody goes, "Would be taken." Into
Yeah.
our house, like if
Right.
somebody had a delivery. So I brought this.
Right.
There was a box outside their house. I take it in my house and just put it in my dining room, not even paying attention, because I had two guests staying at my house, so not even paying attention what the box was. Never even looked at it for a week. It just sat there. The next thing you know, I'm like, I told him we have a delivery, and the woman comes over to get it, and she goes, "Oh, that's her husband." She goes, "That's Marty's Cologuard." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, of all people to take Marty's Cologuard box in and then not even realize it. Because,
Right.
I didn't even, I don't know. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, that is the logo. But it was Christmas time. And like I said, I had two guests in my house. And the last thing you're thinking about is you took in your neighbor's Cologuard box.
You should have put a blue bow on it and made it his Christmas present.
It's like, how ironic is that? I brought in the Cologuard box and didn't even realize it was Cologuard.
That is so funny. So I always say that if I get one person to do a colonoscopy, it makes my journey worth it. And I don't know if I ever told you this story, but in March of this year at Colon Congress, I was speaking to someone in the hallway, and this lady who works at the hotel in the restaurant, came up to me. She was like, "You were here last year, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You don't remember me?" And I'm like, "Remind me." And she's like, "You sat at the bar. You were going through a rough time at your job. You told me that you were here for a conference, that you're a colon cancer survivor. And I told you that I had never had a colonoscopy, and nobody in my family had either. And she's Middle Eastern, so there's a big stigma there. And I had told her that she should get a colonoscopy, and she should tell everyone else to get one too." And she told me that she did a colonoscopy because of me. And when she did her colonoscopy, the rest of her family did too, her siblings. And I just hugged her and I cried. And I'm like, "You're my one. You're
Yeah.
my one." Like, I know I have more than one, I'm sure, but she's the one. Like, she told me, and she's like, the one. And I'm like, it was just such a great, like, full circle moment that it happened at Colon Congress, because that's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
And really, that's what we're supposed to be doing, and it works. Thank
And
goodness. Yeah.
it just goes to show you that we share our story and we urge people, but we never know who's really listening and
We don't
going
know
to
who we
act,
touch. We don't know who we touch. Exactly.
and who's gonna act on it, and, it gives me hope. So, I do wanna ask you, Cathy, looking back, is there anything at all that you would have done differently in your approach to treatment or life afterward? I know we spoke about you probably would have asked for some sexual health help, mental health support, but is there anything else that you think that you would have done differently, or you'd give advice to someone so that they know that they need to advocate for it?
I think the two biggies really are the mental health and the women's, health issues.
Right.
Um, I guess, one of the things we touched on one time before when we were talking earlier was how how the general population can be cruel. And I
Mhm,
told you the story about the incident in the bathroom.
mhm.
And I guess this touches on what you were talking about, because it's educating the public about, not just about the physicalness of someone having cancer, but how you can hurt their feelings, you
Right,
know. And
right.
I told you the story that because I have folks like me, and I guess you too. We have LARS, lower anterior say it right. LARS, lower anterior resection syndrome. Is that
Yes,
it? Okay.
yes, you got it
Which
right.
means, it's like, I call it, I don't go to the bathroom for days, I don't have a bowel move for days. Marky's gonna cover his ears again. I don't go to the bathroom for days. And then I say I have a poop fest.
It's like clustering, they call it clustering.
Clustering. I call it poop fest. They
I
call it clustering,
I
right?
go through that too,
Okay.
constipation and then diarrhea.
Right. Yet another thing that was not explained to me.
Yeah.
Lars was not explained to me back then.
Or
Yeah.
the high chance of having bowel blockages. I have a
That's what
bowel
I
blockage
had
or
three. I've
pressure
had three.
blockage. I have one almost every year.
Yeah, I
So
have had. Well, let me tell you the story about the bathroom, and then we'll go into the blockages, because both of us are woo.
I love it though.
So so I had to go. I was having dinner in like the bar area of a restaurant in my neighborhood with some friends, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I was I was in the stall, and I apparently taking a little longer than the ladies in the line thought a person should be taking in the bathroom.
Right.
And this woman banged on my door, scared the crap out of me. And so I jumped, So, I finished what I needed to do. And when I went back out to the bar area, I overheard this woman telling other people at the bar, there is this drunk woman in the bathroom. And when I looked through the little, crack, and
Right.
she had her head down and she was asleep.
Right.
And it was me trying to go to the bathroom.
Right.
I was mad. So, the mean old attorney in me came out. And I went up to her and I said, excuse me, I'm the person you're talking about. And let me tell you, I am not drunk. I've had colorectal cancer. I have trouble going to the bathroom.
Right.
And I was trying to go to the bathroom. And when you knocked on the door like that, you scared the living daylights out of me. And I said, and let's put another thing into this. I said, suppose I was drunk, or suppose I was sick. Wouldn't it have been wiser to say, ma'am, do you need help?
Right.
Rather than bang on the door?
Right.
Well, she was very apologetic, and the people around her they listened, they heard it, and I thought, you know what? She needed to hear it.
Yeah.
She needed to hear it. She was out of line, and she needed to hear that's not how you treat people. And the part that really got me was, suppose I have been sick, or I was drunk and I needed help.
Right.
Banging on the door wouldn't have helped matters any.
Right. I think I think
Ridiculous.
for me, especially being an architect, what's frustrating for me is that when they talk about the ADA, they recognize cancer and other invisible illnesses as disabilities. However, the public is not aware
Yeah.
that there are invisible disabilities.
Right.
For instance, I have arthritis in both my hips at 42. I can't walk far without being in pain, but I'm not using a cane
Right.
and I'm not in a wheelchair. Or I had to use the disabled stall. One, because of PTSD and now claustrophobia. I can't use a normal size stall. And two, when I had my ostomy, I needed the disabled stall, especially if it had a sink.
Yeah.
And people thought that I was being selfish and privileged. And so it we need to raise awareness that people can have cancer and not look like what cancer looks like on TV, because I never looked like that. And I'm sure you didn't either.
Yeah.
And we look fine now, but it doesn't mean that our body is not an absolute freaking mess. So, I think that's something else that we should definitely raise awareness of, is that, I also suffer from endometriosis. That is a crippling issue to deal with as a woman, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it took me years to be diagnosed and to find a treatment that worked. So there's so many things that, you and I could talk about in a totally another episode
Oh
about
yeah. Oh
health and
yeah.
sexual health
Yeah.
and invisible disabilities and illnesses that we need to raise awareness of. And, you know, um, you did touch on your advocacy. What has been the most rewarding part for you? Because I know that the hardest part is losing friends and seeing other people suffer, which is the hardest part for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just got some bad news about my best friend, yesterday and today, and I'm still trying to cope with that. And I'm in fix it mode. I'm in give me your pathology report when you get it. Give me your genetic testing results. I'm going to try to find you a clinical trial. I'm going to find you another oncologist. I'm going to find an oncologist who's going to take you and I will fly you there. Like, I'm in fix it mode. And because honestly, if I lose this friend, and you know who I'm speaking about, but I don't want to mention it
Mm-hmm.
publicly,
Mm-hmm.
but if I lose this friend, I don't think there's any coming back for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost a lot of close friends, but not on the level of the friendship that me and him have had over the past
Right.
2
Right.
years. And I have been fighting by his side since day one, and he has been fighting so hard for 8 years. And I'm hoping he's not watching this episode and seeing me cry over him, but it's the first time that I've ever been scared of losing him. And I've never heard him speak the way that he's been speaking lately, not in the way that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm worried, but I'm in fix it mode, and he is not alone because I am going to do whatever I can to make it easier for him. All
Right.
he has to do is fight. I will do the logistics of whatever I need to do and find whatever clinical trial and figure out what treatment will work, or find a doctor who's going to fight for him the way that he wants to fight, because he still wants to fight. So I'm not leaving his side. I'm his ride or die till the end. And I made that pact 8 years ago, and I'm going to stick by it. And I think that's the thing, Cathy, is that we know, this is the thing about us. We know the risks of making friends
Yeah.
and loving them, but we become their friends anyway, knowing that we could lose them and how hurtful it would be.
Right.
I know that's the hardest part of our advocacy and us being who we are. But what's the most rewarding part for you?
Believe it or not, on the flip side of having friends, it's the brotherhood, sisterhood that we do have. Like, if when we do lose a friend, we're all there for each other.
Yeah.
We're like, we talk, we text, we messenger our little group.
Yeah.
We are all there for each other when we do lose someone.
And I also want to add that we're also there for each other. Like, when I disappeared, I had so many people reach out to check on me.
Mm-hmm.
And, Cathy, I have to say that when I say that people are my blue family, y'all really are my family. Like, you really are my family. My family has disappeared. Like, my family has literally disappeared on me, and they have not been supportive. And the only person that I have is my mom. And that has been from the beginning. So we really are a family. We're more than a community. We really, like you said, brotherhood and sisterhood, we really are family, and we rally around each other through anything. And I think that's the beauty of what we have. And so I do want to make a little announcement. I am going to create a Facebook group that is private for Blue Couch Chat, so that guests and people who watch can join, and we can have a support group through this that's connected. And then hopefully we can have like little social gatherings sometimes, once a month, maybe on a Saturday or something.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little social hour and we just hang out like how we used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that we need. And I eventually want to have like a retreat, not a conference, but a retreat where we literally spend time together without any programming, and we just veg out and we just hang out and we laugh and we cry, and we don't even have to talk about cancer if we don't want to. So
Right.
those are some things that I'm working on.
Right. Because you're
I
there,
wanted to
you know, we all either are going through treatment or have been through treatment, but that's only one aspect of our lives.
Right.
Right. We also have other aspects of
Yeah.
our lives that we haven't given up. You know,
Right. Right.
like my love for theater, or my, still believe that I'm going to marry Paul McCartney someday. It's
I want to marry Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan, if you're hearing this, I am now single, and yeah, so yeah. Um I know Steve Harvey's daughter kind of did you dirty, but I'll appreciate you and I will treat you right. And I don't need your money. We can sign a prenup, but I'm available, Michael B.
that's funny.
Jordan.
Hey, a girl can dream.
It would be so funny if I had him like call me tomorrow. That would be like the best gift
Oh,
ever.
that's but hey, I'd be shocked if I heard from Paul McCartney tomorrow.
I would also settle for like Billy Joel. Piano man playing
Yeah.
me. He's married though, but yeah.
Well, so is Paul McCartney. But if I can't have Paul McCartney, I know we're going off, but anyway, if I can't have Paul McCartney, John Lennon's oldest son, Julian Lennon, is single.
Oh,
That's good. That's
yeah,
good too.
yeah. I hear you. I mean, honestly, at this point, I will be open to any good man who can deal with the shittiness of my life after cancer, can deal with my farts, can deal with my shitting myself sometimes, can deal with my peeing myself sometimes, can deal with my house being on 70 degrees year round because I am always hot. Who will treat me right, who will respect me, who will love me, and who will be willing to take me to the emergency room and stay with me overnight in an uncomfortable ass chair. If any man is willing to do that, I am open to it.
Right. And
Don't
the thing
ask.
is, we would do it for them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we would.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't ask for much, I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you drive a fancy car. I don't even care if you have a car. I have my own. I'll give you a ride. I can pay my own bills. I mean, and I think that's something that we should also talk about, as being single as women after cancer, like another episode, and maybe dating during and after cancer, because man, that shit is hard.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's just so many things. We definitely have to have another episode to continue. But I do want to ask you, let's see. Okay. So the biggest question
Uh-oh.
is, for those who might be hesitant, how would you encourage them to get screened and take charge of their health? Especially because of your story. Like,
Yeah.
what advice, and how would you encourage them to go and get that colonoscopy?
Encourage them. I think encourage is too weak of a word.
I would handcuff somebody and drag them there.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of did that to my mom.
yeah, yeah.
But
But
yeah,
you kind of like explain to them it's better than the alternative.
right.
It's better than the alternative because you know, having a polyp taken from you is a hell of a lot easier than finding out that you're going to have to go through chemo, radiation, and surgeries, and maybe have a permanent ostomy.
Right.
Believe you know what I say to people. I'm like, this is what's going to happen when you have a colonoscopy. Okay,
Right.
you're going to have one day when you're going to feel some discomfort because you're going to be running to the bathroom. You're going to be, pooping.
Right.
Okay. But I also tell them that you probably you did a prep on an airplane, for God's sake.
I did last year. Prep on a plane. Hashtag. I hashtag that
You're the only
crowd.
person I ever heard that would be crazy enough to do that. But no, and as you already know, the prep has gotten less harsh over the years. Okay, so you have one day where hey, you don't work. Hey, you get out of work for maybe a half a day because you're prepping.
Right.
And then the next day you go in and you have a wonderful nap.
Right.
And then you wake up and hopefully you get good news. And then you get to go home and eat and take a nap. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess it's the whole idea of, going up the butt,
But you don't feel it.
But you're out. You're
And it's a
completely
medical
out.
procedure. And we as women have strangers looking up our hoo-ha every year and scraping stuff out. So I don't understand what the big deal is. And, Cathy, you're right. The biggest thing is a lot of people are scared of the prep. There's new, better preps because
Exactly.
doctors and researchers knew that was a huge barrier. The last prep that I did on a plane,
on an airplane. Yep.
And my GI, I didn't tell him. So he comes in after recovery and he's like, "So that's the best prep you've ever done. You were super clean." And I'm like, "That's good to know." And I'm like, "I wasn't going to tell you something, but I guess now I can tell you." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I did my prep on a plane." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I drank my first bottle right after I went through security. And then I drank my second bottle when I was about to land. I only went to the bathroom once on the plane. It wasn't diarrhea. And I finished the rest of the pooping, which is about 4 more times, when I got home. So it was a very easy prep. And in fact, I'm doing my I'm doing my colonoscopy. Normally I do it on my cancerversary, but I was busy doing advocacy stuff during October. So I flew to Tim's Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer live event the first week of October, and it was on my cancerversary. And then I left directly to St. Louis for a conference at Washington University, St. Louis, and I was on a panel. So I I had to reschedule my colonoscopy this time, and because I was away. Turns out that my colonoscopy is now rescheduled for New Year's Eve. And so I'm actually kind of happy because it means that I won't be taking the same shit into next year.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively. Yeah. Once again, literally and figuratively.
Shitty sense of humor.
Well, I already have set up the consult for my colonoscopy because that's so I have the consult and February will be I'm on the 5-year plan now.
Right.
So February is my 5-year. God, that 5 years went fast.
It does.
I had my last colonoscopy February 2020, and a month later the world shut down.
Right.
So I got lucky that way because I don't think I'd want to do the colonoscopy during the beginnings of COVID.
Yeah.
When we really didn't completely understand it.
Right.
But that 5 years flew.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
They flew by.
So I'm jealous, but I'm not really jealous. I'm on the annual plan. I've been on the annual plan ever since I was diagnosed. I haven't shared my full story yet because this show isn't about me. It's about everyone else. So when the timing is right, I will share my full story. But when I had my first resection at 29, when they found my cancer, which did not show on a scan, which is why I pushed for the colonoscopy. Because people think that if they're sick and they have cancer, it'll show on a CT. It doesn't always. And I was almost stage 4, and I almost died. I was in sepsis months before I was even diagnosed. So in that 1 foot resection that they took out, I had between 15 and 20 polyps. They couldn't even count.
Mm.
I do a colonoscopy every year. I've self-advocated for that. When I still was going through, I just finished treatment and my doctor did a colonoscopy on me. I still had my ostomy. And so I was maybe a year out and not even. And he said, "Oh, I don't need to see you for another 3 years. You had 3 polyps." And I'm like, "You're kidding me, right?" Now imagine I'm like 30 years old. I'm not a medical doctor, but I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, you do realize that I just had stage 3C colon cancer, and you're telling me I can wait 3 years. And I had polyps, and I just had 15 to 20 taken out, and a cancer. And he's like, yeah, the risk doesn't outweigh the benefit. And I'm like, how many people have died from getting a colonoscopy? How many people have died from having stage 3C colon cancer? Benefit risk? And so I found another GI, and I had a colonoscopy the next year. I had 9 polyps. The next year, 11. I have done a colonoscopy every year, which is now 13 years since my diagnosis. I've lost count of how many I've had. I'm probably at 13 or 14, maybe 12. I don't know. But more than I can count on my hands. I know that. Enough to be a pro and be able to do prep on a plane. But I've never had a clean scope. I've had every different type of polyp, and I've had polyps from my cecum all the way through to my rectum.
Mm.
And most concerning is that last year I had a polyp right on my anastomosis site on that scar.
Mm.
So that has been scary for me too, as well as having the rectal polyps and the right-sided polyps, because we know that that is way more deadly, right, and aggressive. So I'm on the annual plan, but it gives me peace of mind. So I want everyone to know, whether you're on the annual, the 3-year, or the 5-year, doing the colonoscopy is really important, because that is the only way, it's the best way to screen and diagnose, but it's also the only way to prevent the colon cancer.
Right. I agree with you.
The doctor puts up that camera, but he also goes at forceps. And if he finds a polyp, he removes it. If it's an early stage or whatever, he removes it. So you don't have to go through what we went through. And so, honestly, getting a colonoscopy is self-care. Healthcare is self-care, and it's self-love. So if you love yourself, please do a colonoscopy. It's really important. That's the gold standard. And yes, I know pooping in a box is easy, but guess what? If you get a positive, you got to do the colonoscopy anyway. So you might as well. To me, the benefits outweigh the risks and outweigh the other options, in my opinion. So, yes, any screening that gets done is great. And if you do any test other than a colonoscopy and you get a positive, the biggest thing that I have to say is follow up with your doctor and make sure you get a colonoscopy to get checked out. I did some research, Cathy. I don't know if you knew, but this is something that keeps me up at night. Only 25% of Black people who get a positive Cologuard or other test follow up with a doctor's appointment or a colonoscopy in 2 years, which means they could be dead by then.
Right.
So that's why I push for the colonoscopy in my community so hard, is because the colonoscopy, even when you do another test, there's still that barrier. So let's just focus on that barrier to the colonoscopy and let's just get them there. And that's in
Right.
every community, you
Yeah, I
know?
think, I think, like you said, any kind of screening is better than no screening at all. And, the poop box is, people have to realize that is for people who are not having symptoms
Mm-hmm.
and do not have a family history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have any problems with people using
I
the,
don't either.
yeah, but only specific people should be using it. And you're absolutely right that those people who don't have a history, a family history, or not having symptoms, and if you do have a positive, just don't drop it. Keep,
Right.
then you have that colonoscopy,
Right.
because it's better. Like we said before, it's better than the alternative.
Don't drop the box. Don't
Don't
drop the
drop the
ball.
box.
Go and get checked out.
Yes.
It's better to do the colonoscopy. Just because you get a positive Cologuard or FIT test or fecal occult test does not mean that you have late stage cancer. Colon cancer is not just preventable by doing a colonoscopy, but it's totally treatable and beatable if caught at early stages.
Right.
And it's still treatable and beatable even if you are stage 3 or stage 4.
Look at me. Yeah.
And me,
Yeah.
right. So, I definitely want to say that it's important that we get screened. And I want to remind everyone that even if you aren't 45, if you have any symptoms,
Right.
please get screened. I was 29. I had symptoms from when I was 17. I had a stomach ache every day, and I had blood in my stool intermittently from when I was 17. And my symptoms got worse over the next 12 years until I was diagnosed. And even with acute symptoms, for 4 years, I was misdiagnosed and almost died.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to push that we young people who have kids check their stool.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them that if they see anything off or red or dark to tell you. If they tell you they have a stomach ache regularly, like I told my parents or I told my pediatrician, get them checked. Kids are getting this. Kids are dying from this. I was 29 and I was a baby, but now babies are getting this and dying. Real babies, 9, 12, 18, 16, 17. Like we have to raise awareness. So when I'm trying to reach out to people 40 and above, I'm also trying to reach out to 30s and 20-year-olds, but also to those people who have kids who are preteens or teenagers, because they need us to advocate for them. Because when I was 17, yes, I told my doctor what was going on, but my parents didn't advocate for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to educate people to not only advocate for themselves, but to advocate for their kids. And it's not just about colon cancer, it's just health in general. It's health in general. It could be anything. We're getting sicker. This society is becoming sicker and sicker physically because of all this crap in the environment. So we really need to be our own advocates and be aware of our bodies. And if you feel something is wrong, say something. Don't just brush it off, no matter how insignificant it might seem, like me with my stomach aches. So I just want to say that. Before we wrap up, Cathy, is there anything
Mm-hmm.
else you'd like to share or say, or a message you want everyone to know?
Well, I think we just did it. Get screened. I mean, that's always the ultimate last message I have
Mhm,
is get screened.
mhm.
And to remember, you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone.
Never alone. You're right. You're right. Cathy, I do want to tell you this has been such a great episode. I hope you had fun. I love hanging out and chatting with you so much. And I do want to share one comment. Marky said that this was a really well put together and very informative, great stream, good audio and video. He doesn't think that medical researchers will find this very useful, and that I'm not to worry about the numbers. God will give me the increase. Marky, I'm not really geared this towards researchers to help them with anything. I do want researchers to come on and talk about research that is being done and maybe new treatments that come out in the future, in terms of having medical professionals. But you and other people who have watched this, you're who I'm geared this towards. Like, I'm hoping that because of me, people like you will tell their loved ones or their friends or their family members about the symptoms, the warning signs, the need to get screened. Um, you're in Jamaica. People are not getting their colonoscopies. People are scared of it. People are scared to talk about what we're talking about now. So, as my friend, please share this with others and let them know that this is happening, that you know someone that this happened to who almost died in Jamaica because the doctors didn't listen. You're the reason. And you sharing my story is helping me in my advocacy, and it's keeping my wave of advocacy and Cathy's wave of advocacy going. So please like, share, subscribe, and tune in. And I am just glad that I'm making an impact. That's why I created this space. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm glad it resonated with you, and I'm glad you enjoyed Cathy's energy. I love her so much. She is so fiery, just like her red hair. It's just, I just love you.
I have my down days too.
Oh, I'm sure that even on your down days, you are still the greatest person because you just have the best energy ever. And sometimes we
I know
feel
I
like
have a lot of gratitude. There's a lot of gratitude
I
going on.
agree. I agree. Somebody, I have to look up who this is. So Sue Adams, let me share this comment. Sue Adams says, Cathy and I have a similar story with age, stage, etc. You ladies are amazing. It took me forever to talk about it. Thank you. Sue, thank you so much for tuning in. And we are here for you. And you can connect with me or Cathy. She's tagged on the stream. And we'd love to support you. You're part of the reason why we do what we do. And so we're more than happy to assist you in any way we can and be your friend, be your family. We love you already. And I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but a lot of beautiful things have come through have happened because of the worst thing in my life. Like, Cathy, you are one of the best things that have come out of my cancer. Meeting people like you, having a new family that's better than my own blood family. I don't care if they get mad at me for saying that, it's the truth. I'm going to talk the real shit. But Cathy, you are one of the people that have made my journey absolutely worth it. Because if it wasn't for my cancer, I probably never would have known you.
That's true.
And so you're one of the reasons why when I say, oh, I had colon cancer and I'm a survivor, and people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I'm not. You're one of the reasons why I can say, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody else said, so Sue says, I would love to get involved and help others. And it was a pain in my ass. Yes, cancer definitely is a pain in the ass. It is also a pain in the pockets. We'll talk about financial toxicity at another time. But however we can help you to help others, you let us know. You can message me, you can message Cathy. We'd love to connect and be there for you. So, Cathy, I just want to say once again, it has been an honor. And well, actually, sorry, we're trying to close up, but we have a quick question that came in.
Okay.
So I do want to acknowledge it. Marky asked if we had to change our diets.
Well, yeah, but sometimes I don't. I should change my. I have a Diet Coke sitting over there. We're really not supposed to do that.
Mhm.
But I know what I can and cannot eat. I have figured out the things that will send me right to the bathroom. I have figured out the things that will,
Right.
make that Lars happen. But then there are times when it just kind of has a mind of its own, and I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. So, but I do pay a lot of attention if I'm having some kind of, reaction to something. Why am I going to the bathroom more than I am? What did I just eat? I think
Right.
about that, and I'm like, oh, I had pasta with tomato sauce. Maybe that was that tomato sauce.
With me, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I can't do tomato sauce unless it's homemade, fresh.
yeah. Tomato
It's
sauce can do
canned, I
it to me. I'm pretty much. I mean, I do eat meat.
yeah.
Moderately. I'm totally off pork. Pork is like so hard to digest. Um,
Right.
there's no pork in my diet. But I do try to watch what I eat, and like I said, I pay attention to the reaction I have to certain foods.
So I'll tell my story. My side of it is, I'll tell my mom, oh, Mom, I'm so constipated, or Mom, I'm having diarrhea. And she's like, well, what did you eat that you're not supposed to eat? And I'm like, Mom, there are some things that I know 100% are going to give me issues, like pizza and pasta with tomato sauce, which I love. I love baked ziti and lasagna,
Me
and I
too.
can't have it anymore. And it makes me so upset.
Yeah.
And so I those things for sure. Um and then salad. I love salad.
The
The other
roughage.
day, I went out and I was like, "Oh my god, I want a salad so bad." And oh my god, I had to leave the party that I was with, and I was in the bathroom, and I always take my phone with me because I was with my cousin, my god sister, and she was visiting from New York, and she literally was, like, texting me, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is just the usual."
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gotten a little better with roughage, but in after the reversal, when the ostomy, was no longer with me, roughage was tough. That was a tough
I
one.
s I still can't, and I try to tell my mom and even the nutritionist that I saw. So the chemo also gave me gastroparesis. That's something that they don't talk about. It causes motility issues in your stomach and in your gut, right?
Mhm.
So I also had gastroparesis. I've kind of managed it now for the most part. A lot of it is stress induced, I find as well. Um, but what I try to explain to my mom and the nutritionist is there are times when I could eat broccoli every day for 2 weeks and not have an issue, and then all of a sudden, I have it maybe 3 months later, and I have diarrhea for 3 days.
Yeah,
So there is no, "Oh, yes, I can take this out of my diet and I'll be okay," or,
yeah,
"Oh, yes, this is gonna always make me sick." Sometimes I can cheat and have pizza, and I'm okay. Sometimes I can cheat and have a piece of lasagna and be okay. So it's like now I'm at the point where I've always eaten healthy, but now I cook for myself as much as I can, and I notice that's helped me a lot, but I still have the bowel blockages. I still have the bouts of constipation. I still have the diarrhea, but one thing that I can say is that in the past year, especially since I quit my job, so my life has been a lot less
yeah.
stressful.
I know that same thing happened to me when I retired. It's
Yeah,
totally
I
different.
I have gone from needing to use the bathroom 6 to 8 times a day to now going once for the most part, except for when I am either constipated or having diarrhea.
Mhm.
So, I am somewhat normal-ish.
Yeah,
That's my favorite word is ish. I wanna get a tattoo that says ish, like, for real, like ish, like shit-ish, everything is ish. I'm okay-ish. I'm alright-ish. I'm happy-ish. I'm sad-ish.
yeah,
You know? I'm shitty-ish, you know?
funny.
I'm normal-ish.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
talking. Oh, go ahead.
I think that's something that we need people to understand around us. Like, I love my mom, but there are times when we go to the beach. My sister has a shrimp and melon allergy. I can't eat certain things, and my mom knows this. And I also have appetite issues where I usually don't eat some days. I just don't feel hungry. And there are times when I go to the beach and my mom brings a freaking pizza. And she told me, "Don't worry, we're bringing food." And we get there and it's a freaking pizza. And I'm just like, but when it comes to the shrimp allergy and the melon allergy that my sister has, oh, we don't go to sushi places. We don't go to certain places because of my sister's allergy. But there's this thing that I looked up and I never knew the term. And this is something that we need to be aware of. It's called dietary privilege. People are privileged to not have dietary issues.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it, once I found that word, it made me much more patient with my family and them not understanding that phrase, because it made me realize that what I was experiencing really was something that there's a word for,
Hmm.
you know? But yeah, sorry, you were gonna say.
Oh, yeah. You were mentioning the obstructions. Yeah, I had three small bowel. What do you call them? Three small bowel obstructions. Three times I had the obstructions, and
Mhm.
they really hurt.
Yeah, they
And
do.
the NG tube isn't fun.
No.
But after the third one, my colorectal cancer surgeon sent me to a general surgeon, and we fixed my hernia and did some scraping of the scar tissue, and I
Mhm.
haven't had a problem since. Knock on wood.
I find that mine are stress induced. I have become such a pro now that I know the symptoms from when it's becoming a partial obstruction, and I kind of know how to treat it. I'll take some Miralax or some magnesium citrate, and I'll go on like a liquid diet for like
Yeah.
a week or so
Yeah.
to avoid the
I would drink a lot of
magnesium.
water and walk.
Yeah, I'm actually, this is actually coconut water. I drink a lot of coconut water because something that they also don't tell us is when you're missing your descending colon, which I am. I'm missing about 2 feet of my colon. Pretty much my descending, part of my transverse, and part of my rectum. Um, Basically, your descending colon is what absorbs the water from your feces and the nutrients.
Right.
So when you're missing your descending colon, or any part of your colon really, you're more likely to be dehydrated. So what I found was that, one, I can't drink a lot of water because of my gastroparesis. So I can't drink large amounts of liquid and I can't eat large amounts of food. So as much as I would drink water, and being in Miami and it being humid and hot all the time, I'm constantly dehydrated because water's not giving me electrolytes. Then drinking Gatorade and those other things, that's not healthy. It's
Right.
preservatives,
Right.
not really nutritious, and it's sugary and it's full of sodium.
Salt. Yeah.
So I started drinking coconut water. And let me tell you, Cathy, my skin is better, my energy is better, my mood is better, and I am way more hydrated and I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And I sleep better. So I have coconut water coming on a delivery subscription every couple weeks.
And it tastes
And
good.
that's all I drink. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I found is all natural, nothing added, and it's really, really helped me. So this is like 2 boxes of coconut water that I've been sipping on. I had 2 bottles earlier today. I try to have a bottle before I go to bed at night. So I try to do an average of like 2 to 4 little bottles of coconut water a day. And it's really helped my digestion as well. So I don't know if you knew, but from what I heard, in a lot of third world countries like Jamaica, when there's a shortage of saline like there is now, they actually use coconut water because, one, it's sterile when it's in the coconut, and it has all the electrolytes and nutrition that's more than what saline can give you. So that's how good coconut water is for you.
Yeah, it is good for you. I know that. I should
Yeah.
try that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really I recommend it so much. But I do want to wrap it up. We've been on for an hour and a half. Can you believe it? It's so crazy.
With me and you, I can believe it.
We did pretty good though, because we could go for hours and hours, but it is so hard to be within an hour because there's just so much to be said and so much to learn. And I don't really like to limit it too much because I don't want to have things not said that need to be said, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of flexible with the timing. And see, we still have people viewing too. So
Oh my God, we haven't bored them yet.
no, we haven't. I'm telling you, your energy is amazing. And it's just so informative. There's so many things that your story has taught us and can help people. But I do want to wrap it up now. And I just want to say again, it has just been such an honor and a pleasure to have you on here, Cathy.
Thank you.
And
Same, right back at you.
I can't wait to see you in a few weeks.
I know.
Should we say what's happening in a few weeks so people can know so that they can try to register?
Sure.
So Cathy and I are going to be at the Colorectal Cancer Alliance's AllyCon. It is the first one since 2019 that's in person because of the pandemic.
No, we had the one in Philadelphia 2 years ago.
Was that 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dang, you're right.
That was the very first one I ever went to.
Where has the time gone? That was the first one? That's when I first met you?
No, we actually met 2 years ago at Colon Congress because I walked up to you and I said, we've never met, but we're friends on Facebook.
I love you so much. I remember that now, and we hugged. I remember that now. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. But yeah, so Colorectal Cancer Alliance is having their usually annual conference. It was the first event that I'd ever come to as a survivor back in 2013 here in my hometown of Miami. It is back in Miami again this year. So come so you can see me. It's my hometown. I'll take you around. But it is a very informative conference. It is a welcoming environment. And it is a place where you make lifelong friends who get the shit you've been through and will be there through thick and thin and shits and farts and all of it. Um, literally. Um, so yeah, it's December, when is it? The 14th through 16th, I
No,
think.
no, I think it's the 11th through 14th.
It may be.
We get there on a Friday. We get there on a Friday. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, whatever that is in December.
And if you just search for AllyCon in Google, it'll come up. I think it's allycon.com, right?
Yeah, I think it is allycon.com, and then they also have a Facebook page.
Right. Or is it
You can find it on Facebook.
Hold on, let me look it up. Allycon.
Should we tell them about Call on Congress in March too while we're at it?
We can. You can go ahead and talk about Call on Congress.
Okay. In March, Fight Colorectal, Fight Colorectal Cancer, another wonderful organization. They have something called Call on Congress, and we all meet in DC for a few days, and we have a conference, and then it culminates with us going to Capitol Hill. And according to your state, you go visit your senators and Congress people. Generally, you talk to their aides, but just because you're talking to their aide doesn't mean the aides really do have the ear of the congressperson that they work for. And we meet with them and we discuss such things as funding for research, funding for programs that will help people in rural areas get screened. And that's also a really good event that we all kind of, once again, get to see each other, and we're a family. So that's a really good one if you really want to be an advocate and you really want to make a difference, and go on Capitol Hill and talk to your Congress people from your own state.
For sure. I just put the 2 links as tickers. The first one was AllyCon. That link will take you to register for AllyCon. And then fightcolorectalcancer.org/CONC, Call on Congress. That's where you can register for Call on Congress for March of 2025. So yeah, those are really 2 great organizations and 2 great events to go to meet other people like us and family, and just knowing that you're not alone and finding support, as well as being an advocate. If it wasn't for that first Colorectal Cancer Alliance, back then it was Colon Cancer Alliance conference in 2013, I wouldn't be where I am now. I still would have been that scared 29, 30-year-old girl who was ashamed of her disease and didn't want to talk about it, and not realizing that I could help other people because other people helped me when I went to that conference, and I realized I wasn't alone. And those people like you, Cathy, have given me strength and hope and support. So definitely check out those events if you're interested. I would love to see you there. If you are going to be there, please message me so I can make sure that I meet you in person and we spend some time. Cathy, I cannot wait to see you in person. I am so excited.
Me too.
And, I will see you in a couple of minutes back in the blue room.
Okay.
But I'm going to wrap it up now.
Okay, thank you.
Again.
Thank you to everybody who was watching.
Yes, thank you. And Cathy, thank you for being on. This has been so great, and we will definitely have more conversations.
Sounds good to me.
I love you.
Love you back. Bye.
Bye. Hello, everyone. Isn't Cathy absolutely wonderful? I'm sure you see why I love her so much, and I'm so happy to consider her not just a friend, but truly family. Thank you for joining us on Blue Couch Chat tonight. This is where we bring advocacy and education to the world, as well as support to the colorectal cancer community, especially for those in underserved populations and areas and people who are high risk. Remember, colorectal cancer is preventable, treatable, and beatable. It can happen at any age, and risk factors like family history and certain lifestyle choices like diet and exercise increase the likelihood of getting colorectal cancer. Symptoms like changes in bowel habits, blood in the stool, abdominal discomfort, fatigue, anemia, or unexplained weight loss should never be ignored. Sometimes there are no symptoms at all for colorectal cancer. Therefore, with screening starting at 45 now, early detection through colonoscopy saves lives. Please help us raise awareness by tuning in each week, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. I'm always looking for guests. Every story deserves to be shared, and every voice deserves to be heard. Together, let's continue fighting for awareness and a future where colorectal cancer no longer exists. Remember, we're here to connect, inspire, and support each other through every step of this journey. Be sure to check out more resources and past episodes on all social media platforms at Blue Couch Chat on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter/X. I still call it Twitter. Yes, I'm old. And Instagram. And please join our community on social media. Like I said, I will be starting a private group for Blue Couch Chat so that people can have support. Thank you to all who have watched live or all of those who will be catching us on the replay. Once again, please click like, please click share, please comment, please subscribe. Most importantly, if I help you, please help me by doing those things above so I can keep doing this. Please go out there and live life to the fullest and get out and thrive. Till next time, I love you. Take care.